Hello and welcome to the video. This video is an overview of this thing here. This is the Goosky S1 little helicopter, and I've got it in because I'm fascinated to see how Goosky have engineered this thing. Because I heard on the grapevine that the designer of the OMP Hobby M2, a little helicopter that I love, is now working with Goosky, so I definitely had to look at what they were doing over there. Now, lots of others are flying the heck out of this little thing on YouTube already with hard 3D maneuvers and lots of other things. I'm not interested in that because you know what? That stuff already exists on YouTube. What I wanted to show you was some of the little stuff on here and talk about how it compares with those other pieces. Now, this has a width of 54 millimeters. The tail rotor diameter is 53 millimeters. The flight time, you'll get a maximum of 8 minutes if you are flying it relatively gently. If you are flying it like you stole it, you're only going to get 3.5 minutes. Body height is about 88 millimeters. Main rotor diameter is 290 millimeters, and the takeoff weight is only 107 grams. It'll take about half an hour to charge the battery using a standard battery charger, and it does come with an adapter for the battery because the battery only has a balance connector on it. Now, there's some really nice features in this. Just like a lot of the other bind and fly helicopters like this, it features inbuilt FTABA FHSS protocol, and it also features Spectrum and S-Bus ports on the little flight controller stabilizer thing at the top. So you can bind to it using a multi-protocol radio or a FTABA radio that's set up correctly, or you can plug in any S-Bus receiver, which I think is fantastic, or a Spectrum receiver too. Full metal geared servos all the way around. It also has a mobile app for adjustment of the settings, which is something I've not seen on this kind of small helicopter before. Battery installation is done, as you've already seen, without canopy removal, and I really love that. These canopies are quite fragile, and taking them on and off over time, they do get a little bit crispy and they will start to split. So the fact that you can take the battery in and out of it without having to take the canopy off is a really good thing. In flight, it's a very stable helicopter. There is kind of a normal mode and a 3D mode in terms of the amount of help that it will give you and the self-right stuff. And that means that it's very nice to learn on. This is one of those little helicopters that if you were maybe into flying multi-rotors and wanted to move to a single rotor helicopter like this, this would actually be a nice way to do it, because essentially it kind of gives you an angle mode that you can get used to everything, because this is one of those little things that not only can work with a beginner, but can actually stay with you as you've got more sophisticated and progressed, and ultimately into flying 3D if that's where you want to end up. Tail performance on this is very, very good. The tail is very locked in when you're flying around, and that does help with those harder 3D maneuvers. Flying it feels very smooth and precise, and it is like one of those really nicely tuned quadcopters if you're coming from that part of the hobby. In fact, it's probably, without giving too much away in the summary, one of the nicest micros I've flown here. There is a little Bluetooth adapter that you plug into the port here on the controller, and that then creates a Bluetooth point that you can connect to with your phone, and then using the app that you can download from the App Store, you can then connect to it and update all the settings. In the playing that I've done here, however, I'm using Huawei S20, I think this is, and I'm struggling to get it to work. So just be aware of that. It doesn't work on everything, but I'm sure they'll continue to improve the app to make it easier. But I really love the idea that you can go in and you can tweak how it all performs without having to have wacky cables or applications on your PC or other things. Just having a Bluetooth hotspot is a really cute idea. I wish more helicopters had it on here to do the setup. You can obviously do the setup through the button and the other pieces. That's all covered in the manual, but I really like the idea of the app where it's all very graphical. As I mentioned earlier, there is a lot to like about this little helicopter, and it's clear that when they've designed it, they've put an awful lot of thought into this and tried to make it the best little helicopter that they can. There's lots of things that I really like. First and foremost is that it is nice and quiet. It doesn't make that screaming sound. You can fly it in places and not draw too much attention to yourself, and it is incredibly stable. But I would say it's probably overpowered, if anything. They've made this thing with an awful lot of torque and power. So it is able to do those 3D things, and actually when you set your radio up on something like a multi-protocol radio, you are not running anywhere near 80, 90 or 100% throttle because you just don't need it. I like how stable and fun to fly it is, and how much confidence it gives a pilot who is learning, particularly if you don't have it in the 3D mode, where it gives you an awful lot of assistance and you have those kind of self-righting abilities. And that Bluetooth setup from the phone, although I haven't quite got it to work here, I just love that idea. That's a really modern idea, and I think more modern helicopters should have that kind of functionality. I really like the idea that you can install the battery without canopy removal. I have occasionally snapped and broken damaged canopies where I've been taking them on and off to put the battery in, and it also means that it's easier to get to it if something's gone wrong. You just flip it over, pull that balance tap connector out, and the bottle is safe. Taking it apart, I've noticed that there is thread lock on all the important bolts. That's lovely to see. And the metal head and the parts on that 120-degree swash work really nicely and is very, very smooth. I also like the fact that there are those S-bus and those other inputs. It means that you're not limited to just that Futaba or proprietary receivers. If you can get a regular S-bus receiver and set it up in the right way, then that's all going to work. I like the fact that you're going to get 8 minutes flight time out of a teeny weeny little battery. This shows the efficiency of a single rotor system over something like a multi-rotor. But be aware, you'll only get about 3.5 minutes if you fly it like you stole it. 8 minutes that they're claiming on the website is definitely more of the pootling around, just flying it conventionally. And the last thing that I'm really impressed with is it seems to be pretty durable. I've been flying this around and putting it through its paces, and it flies and seems to take the odd occasional harder landing and just shrug it off. Some helicopters tend to try and destroy themselves every time you fly them. This one seems to be a little bit better behaved in that regard. So again, makes it much better for beginners or those who are interested in something that they can learn on, because it doesn't mean that every time you have an accident you're going to have to spend £100 on spare parts and a whole evening putting the thing back together. There's only a couple of things to note about this that I would draw your attention to. The manuals are okay, but they are a little bit confusing. I think it would be worthwhile having somebody who is an English speaker, kind of a professional manual writer, going through them, particularly things like the radio setup for if you want to set up a multi-protocol radio. There's no telemetry, sadly, in the included SHFSS receiver, so you can't monitor battery voltage on things like you can with the OMP Hobby M2, and I've missed that when I've been flying this. It means that I'm kind of having to set timers and try and guess where my battery voltage is, rather than have the alert on the radio so that I know, irrespective of how I'm flying, when it's time to come into land. I have had issues with the Bluetooth app here to tweak the settings, which I'm a bit disappointed about, but I'm sure that's probably something more to do with my phone. However, I hope they continue to invest time and effort and develop that application to make it more robust and to make it easier to work. And you're definitely going to need more than the one battery I have here, because when you're flying it around and having fun, that 6 or 7 minutes that you're going to get kind of flying in a spirited fashion is going to pass very quickly, and that 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes you're going to get when you go to idle at 1 or 2 goes very fast indeed. This is hands down one of the best little micros that I've got my hands on and that I've flown. See others for those 3D flying videos, but I would point this to those of you that are interested in getting something to try a helicopter and to learn on, and that will also then stay with you through to more advanced flying. The big issue, of course, is that this gets small really quickly, so it's not great for further away. You have to keep it relatively close in, otherwise you'll lose orientation. This is small to begin with, and when it gets 100 feet away, you can hardly see the thing. But in summary, this is a very impressive little heli. Goosky have obviously put a lot of thought and effort into this. So my final comment in this is an impressive little helicopter. This is a cracker. I would recommend this. There are some really beautiful touches in the way that they've designed the blade grips so that the nuts are kind of semi-captive, so it's easier to do them up and to undo them. The fact that the keyway is kind of locked on the tail so that the tail rotor can't spin even if you start to have a problem with the loose screw. It's really, really well put together. I'm excited to see what else Goosky come out with if this is the quality they put into one of these little helicopters. Thank you for watching the video. If you watch my videos and find them useful, then please take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel a lot. If you really like what I'm doing here, you can become a Patreon and support the time I spend helping others and get access to lots of exclusive benefits. Link is in the video description. Remember that all the videos on the channel are organized into playlists, so you can easily use those playlists to find all the videos on a subject that you are interested in. Add Painless 360 to your searches on Google and YouTube, and it'll help you find my content for any particular topic. Thanks again for watching, and as always, happy flying.